have to leave the refrigerator door open. I'm getting a draft.
I'm sorry. Maybe I should look for some food in the dishwasher.
You know, if a maniac broke in this house right now and shot me dead, Al wouldn't even know.
I'd know.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy JayFlex, and today I'm checking out another flashback from the past. We got remembering the 1970s, guys. Now, of course, I wasn't born there. I'm a Gen Zer myself, so it's always curious to check out these things from back in the past. And guys, of course, don't forget to check out Rate of History for putting these videos together, because without him, this wouldn't be possible. Now, I've done one or two of these like flashbacks in the past. I'm gonna make a place for all of these in description as well. So everything's gonna be in the description if you guys are wondering. And let's just get straight into this video, yeah, shall we? Let's go.
Grooviest decades around. If you grew up or lived in the 1970s, then you realize it's one of the grooviest decades around.
I can imagine.
Before the internet, and times were simple, but times were good. The 70s are more than just bell-bottom jeans and bell-bottom pants. And today we're going to discuss some of the things that happened.
That's that Saturday Night Fever, man. I've been doing music reactions as well from people like the Bee Gees, so you know I can attest. The 1970s were groovy, man. I've been enjoying it so far.
Bell-bottom jeans and bell-bottom pants. And today we're going to discuss some of the things that happened in the 70s, and hopefully it brings back some memories. The Brady Bunch was a huge hit in the 1970s, and with 3 girls and 3 boys of different ages, almost every kid had a crush on someone that was on the show.
I'm dead.
The show was too perfect to exist in the real world, but somehow it resonated with kids in the 70s. CB radios were mainly used by
That's actually so convenient, because I was actually considering checking out the Brady Bunch as well. So look, you know what, guys? If you want to check out the Brady Bunch, comment down below, because yeah, like you're saying, this was a popular show at the time.
3 girls and 3 boys of different ages, almost every kid had a crush on someone that was on the show. The show was too perfect to exist in the real world, but somehow it resonated with kids in the 70s. CB radios were mainly used by truckers, but they crossed over into mainstream in the 1970s, and even moms and station wagons wanted to have their own handle.
Okay.
10-4 and Roger That became popular slang of the 70s.
Don't kill me.
Of course, kids had to cover their ears when some of the truckers were talking and telling jokes.
Wow.
Macrame was something that you saw a lot of in the 70s.
You see, this shows a sign of the times. Like when I think of Roger That and what he just said, I think of Call of Duty, which is our games. You know what I'm saying, on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, like more modern day times. But yeah, to see where a lot of this was influenced from is sick.
Talking and telling jokes. Macrame was something that you saw a lot of in the 70s, and it took over houses everywhere, from hanging plant baskets to towel holders. One of the more popular items to have was an owl for some reason, and it was made out of macrame, of course. The colors of the 1970s included avocado green, banana yellow, or neon orange. You could find these colors on clothes, carpet, car interiors, appliances, counters, or even furniture.
Wow.
The round ottoman seats became strangely popular in the 70s. Most were meant to be used as footstools, but kids would often stretch out on them or curl up on them for cat naps.
Wow.
It was also fun to spread out and pretend that you were Superman flying high through the sky.
You're joking.
But who could resist trying to jump around on them or even over the top of them?
Nah, you guys gotta let me know if you guys are lying on that. What do you say? What's it called? I've literally just forgot the name of it. But this seating thing here, and you did the Superman thing. You guys let me know if you did that, because I can imagine when you guys are young, imagination's running wild. Whew.
But who could resist trying to jump around on them or even over the top of them?
That is fun though.
Evel Knievel was one of the super popular things in the 1970s, and so were his toys.
Oh, wow.
He was always trying different stunts, and it usually led to kids in the neighborhood building ramps and seeing if they could jump over so many Tonka trucks or, God forbid, other kids.
You're joking.
The lunchbox...
Do you know what? I'm not even surprised. That's something I can imagine 1970 kids doing for fun. And I can imagine how you could see that as fun as well. But it's hella dangerous. I wouldn't be surprised if someone's seriously injured from that. But, you know, if they try doing that nowadays, you know, you're getting so many warnings, so many complaints. I didn't think this would fly.
Stunts, and it usually led to kids in the neighborhood building ramps and seeing if they could jump over so many Tonka trucks or, God forbid, other kids. The lunchboxes in the 1970s were tough, and they were meant to protect your peanut butter and jelly sandwich from bomb blasts.
Wow,
Plastic or material lunch bags of today just wouldn't have cut it.
Yeah, that's different.
The best thing about these old boxes is they came with your favorite characters on them.
Wow.
Could be Superman, Batman, Evel Knievel, or one of the many others that was out at the time.
Yeah.
You weren't cool unless you had one, and what you had said a lot about your personality.
Wow.
1976.
Yeah, that's so. I've never seen those in my life, and I'm sure a lot of you guys will be, glowing up, being reminded of this. But yeah, I've never seen that in my life. It looks interesting, and I can imagine that what he said about that is so true, man. Wow.
And what you had said a lot about your personality.
I wonder what ones you guys
1976 was a bicentennial year, making the people across the country super patriotic.
Okay.
Clothing, parades, fireworks, Revolutionary War reenactments, and more took over the nation and occurred everywhere.
Really?
Back then, it was cool to wear the red, white, and blue.
Wow.
One of the biggest scams of the 1970s was pet rocks. It was a hot item for a short time, and many kids wanted them. The funny thing was, most kids never even felt foolish about having them. As quick as they came in, they went out, but that wasn't before making the inventor of the toy a millionaire.
Wow.
In the 70s, it seemed like everyone's mother was selling Tupperware or a...
No, pet rock is crazy. You said that was a quick in and quick out thing. I hear it. But how he's managed to make money off of a pet rock? A rock, I'm guessing? Just a rock that you have as a pet? Fair enough, man. Look, you guys like to go outside back in the day, so maybe rocks were like more cool for you guys. So, because that one there is interesting.
In the 70s, it seemed like everyone's mother was selling Tupperware or Avon products. And if they weren't, then they were going to Tupperware parties and bringing home the goods.
Right.
These containers came in the traditional avocado green, yellow, and orange colors of the time. They were super durable, and not even a tornado could pull that lid off.
That's it.
Tang hit the market in November of 1970, and they marketed their instant beverage as a nutrition of choice for astronauts everywhere.
Okay.
The problem was, Buzz Aldrin, the second man on the moon, said he wasn't even a fan of Tang.
Wow.
The taste was vaguely like oranges, but for a while we all wanted to drink the beverage to see if it made us smarter. The 70s was really about going all out and having lots of flair. Cars were no exception to this rule. Interiors came in the traditional colors of the time period, which some may argue is better than the plentiful black of today.
No, I agree with that.
But the outside of the station wagons also had some extra appeal with the wood paneling.
Oh.
It wasn't actually real wood, but it was a realistic looking wood that was actually vinyl siding.
Yeah, cars back in the day look way cooler than they are now. Like, way cooler.
But it was a realistic looking wood that was actually vinyl siding. The good thing about that is you didn't have to worry about wood rot or termites. Back in the 70s, comic books and magazines were much more popular than they are today. Okay. One of the great things about them were the irresistible ads in the back part. Sometimes it was a toy or hatch your own baby chick. Oh, wow. One of the more popular things for kids to get was sea monkeys. The picture painted them as sort of a fun, happy, mythical creature. But you would quickly learn your lesson in advertising when they came because they looked nothing like the picture. They were actually strange brine shrimp.
What?
Not exactly the best pet a kid could have.
Oh, that looks so dead, man. And you know what? I feel like they used to do that still, like nowadays, of like having toys and like Happy Meals and like McDonald's. So it's interesting that you guys, I mean, I feel like they still do that with kids' toys as well, like nowadays. But having these like little toys at the back. But yeah. You guys used to read a lot more as well, so I can imagine why these are more popular, these comic books and stuff like that.
And in advertising when they came because they looked nothing like the picture. They were actually strange brine shrimp. Not exactly the best pet a kid could have.
Time flies.
The 1970s saw its own version of the delete button, and it was called liquid paper or whiteout. If you made a mistake on a letter or school assignment, then no problem. Just grab the liquid paper and paint a spot over that mistake. Of course, this was not instant, and you had to wait for it to dry, which felt like forever. This would lead to everyone growing impatient, and they would start blowing on the paper. It did speed up the process, but they looked ridiculous at the same time. When it finally dried, there was a good chance you lost your train of thought. Aluminum cans in the 70s were completely different than how they are today. For starters, they really were more like a cylinder, but the biggest difference was on top. In order to open the can, you had a pull ring which would tear open a small wedge shape on top of the aluminum can. Sometimes kids would bend these pull tabs and make necklaces out of them, but most of the time they were just thrown down on the ground.
Necklaces.
These pull tabs were all over parks and in waters and swimming areas everywhere. Injuries would then happen when people would accidentally step on these pull tabs. This would cut them really bad.
Oh.
This eventually forced the beer and soda cans to overhaul the pull tabs, making the world a safer and cleaner place. One story that happened in the 1970s captivated people like no other story before. Patty Hearst was the granddaughter of a newspaper publishing titan, William Randolph Hearst, and her story was something like out of a Hollywood movie.
Okay.
In 1974, Patty was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army.
What?
She then changed her name to Tanya and grew quite fond of her kidnappers.
Huh?
She ended up joining forces with her captors and then helped them rob banks in San Francisco. The story was so unbelievable that it left people wondering if it was really happening or not. Bicycle.
Wow, are you serious? Well, so Patty turned into Tanya, she got kidnapped and ended up joining forces with the kidnappers? Like, what? Yeah, bro, even that story is captivating me today as a Gen Zer. Crazy.
Unbelievable that it left people wondering if it was really happening or not.
Wow.
Bicycle helmets were something that was unheard of in the 70s for the most part. It wasn't cool. It usually meant that you were a weirdo or you were recovering from a serious cranial injury. Back then, we just all learned how to take an injury on the old noggin.
Yeah, that's right.
Some kids did suffer serious consequences of not wearing a helmet. Even if you could care less about politics, everyone was vaguely aware that something bad was happening in Washington.
Damn.
It was the topic of many dinner conversations, and the evening news was relentless on reporting each and every new detail. Seeing the disgraced Richard Nixon leave the White House forever and then board a helicopter was one of the most unforgettable moments of television history in the 1970s.
Bro, I can imagine, man. Even politics in the USA seems like it's a lot more like ingrained in the culture. Obviously, in the UK, it's not as talked about as much, but it's still talked about. But even then, yeah, like USA, man, you guys.
Unforgettable moments of television history in the 1970s. As a kid in the 70s, you had only one opportunity to watch your favorite cartoon characters,
That makes sense.
and that was on Saturday mornings. If you missed it, then it seemed like you had to wait forever until the next Saturday morning rolled around.
Wow, times have changed, man.
It certainly wasn't possible for a kid to watch every cartoon ever made with the press of just a button.
Wow.
Kids today will never understand the hardships of waiting for their favorite cartoon to appear on television.
Okay, do you know what? To be fair, when I was really young, because I still grew up before like technology was really, really implemented. Like when I grew up, there was phones and stuff like that and the internet. But at least when I was young, my parents weren't really trying to give me all of that. So all I had was like TV channel, and it's like at a certain time they play I think you show Scooby-Doo there. So I'd watch Scooby-Doo, Ben 10, stuff like that. And I'd have to wait certain times every day to watch it. So I kind of can relate to that one, but not to the degree I'm sure you guys would have, because imagine after you miss it and then you have to wait for so long until you can watch it again because you don't have replay the internet like that. That's different, man. I don't even know what I would do in that situation. But then I'll be used to it, so it's like I wouldn't know the difference. But yeah, times have changed.
The hardships of waiting for their favorite cartoon to appear on television. Before the days of cell phones capturing photos, many people had Polaroid cameras. They were extremely popular because you could instantly see the photos rather than having to wait for the film to be developed. This made family photos better, but at the same time, you did have to wait for the instant photos to develop. Of course, this could be sped up, or so we thought, by shaking the picture vigorously so the air drying process would speed up more quickly.
Doesn't work?
Songs in the 70s were not always meant to be understood, and it was anybody's guess what was being said. We didn't have Google back then to help us out with the translation.
Wow, that makes sense.
Take Don McLean's 1971 hit, American Pie. No one really knew who the jester was and why he was stealing the king's thorny crown, and just who was Jack. Kids had plenty of theories, but was the whole song really about Buddy Holly dying on a plane crash and McLean feeling sad about it?
See, I don't know the context of that, but I can imagine. Like, even I'll take for granted like having Google and I can just search lyrics. But yeah, I can. You guys not know what he actually said, and it's causing a bunch of like conspiracies or just trains of thoughts. Now do you know what? That's entertaining. That's entertaining. I would love to just decipher what did he really say. Do you know what I mean?
Buddy Holly dying on a plane crash and McLean feeling sad about it?
That's interesting.
Smoking in the 70s could be seen everywhere. People were puffing away in offices, restaurants, airplanes, and most homes and public buildings.
Yeah.
Secondhand smoke wasn't even something that people discussed. Wow. Between candy cigarettes and the Marlboro Man, even kids wanted to get in on the tobacco craze.
I can imagine.
TV reception in the 70s.
Smoking then is what vaping is today. Smoking of that time is vaping now. Is vaping. Every kid is vaping, and I can't stand that either.
Even kids wanted to get in on the tobacco craze.
Kids my age.
TV
especially.
Reception in the 70s was a real struggle. In order to get rid of the distorted picture or snow, you had to adjust the rabbit ears or maybe even the knobs on the television.
Wow.
It wasn't a quick process by any means, and people often tried adding foil or getting bigger antennas. And if you happened to adjust it while Dad was watching the big fight and it happened to come in focus, well, that meant you were going to be there for a while. Speaking of television, we really didn't have a plethora of channels to pick from.
Yeah, that's so long having to adjust like the aerial, wherever you adjust in. That is, yeah, man, just turn on the TV and let me watch. Gee, you guys had patience back in the day, which makes sense of the time you grew up in. If a Gen Zer like me went back into the Gen X times, I would not survive, man. I would get so bored so quickly. And you know what? I'd probably prefer it that way because it would make me appreciate the things in the real world a lot more.
For a while. Speaking of television, we really didn't have a plethora of channels to pick from. If you were lucky and in a good area, you had 3 on the lower numbers, and then you could turn the knob to U and maybe get 3 more channels on the other knob.
Really?
Basically, that meant that you were Dad's remote control. Television in the 70s was not something that was 24 hours a day. It would eventually go off the air at night.
Wow.
The time depended on the area you were in and what station you were watching. Sometimes the stations would have sort of an off-the-air patriotic theme or Native American. Other times it was just a display, sort of a basic screensaver, or maybe even it was just snow until the next morning at 6 a.m. when the station would resume.
That's so
Long
different.
before kids were texting on phones, the only option available was writing notes and passing them on in class.
That's the best.
And Lord help you if the teacher actually caught you doing that, because if she did, she was going to take that note and read it in front of the whole class out loud. An email.
Hey, I know you guys were doing that back in the day, man. Just writing notes to your crushes and your lovers. Oh, back in the day, man, that's when love was really. It's like you meet people in person, it'd be all romantic, writing notes to each other. I hope it isn't like trying not to get caught by the teacher. Yeah, you guys had it best, man.
She was going to take that note and read it in front of the whole class out loud. And emails? No. There was only snail mail. We had to actually learn penmanship, cursive, and typing on typewriters. Then we would pay for a stamp and stuff it in an envelope so it would get mailed.
You are a beautiful human being but I'm not good at drawing human beings. So I have drawn a potato. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
To the person, and they would receive it anywhere from days to a couple weeks later.
Wow.
What kid didn't love fooling around with a typewriter, though? Something else 70s kids paved the way on was selfies. No, there wasn't cell phones, but there were these cool photo booths.
Wow.
Everyone would cram inside like clowns inside of a small car and wait for the camera to flash 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
The results weren't always the best, but then there was no such thing as the perfect selfie. Besides, who really wanted to keep feeding the booth more money? In the 1970s...
Yeah, and that's so cool, man. A photo booth seems to still be a thing of today, so, that's sick.
There was no Google or way of fact-checking, so kids believed basically everything. Remember when Mikey, the picky eater from Life cereal, consumed too many Pop Rocks and Coca-Cola? He died, or at least we thought, by way of his stomach exploding. There were tons of different rumors of all sorts at the time, and we were all guilty of spreading them. As it turns out, most of them were false. If you look around today, kids have various hairstyles. Maybe it's parted to the left or the right, or it's a faux hawk. But in the 1970s, it was all about the straight-edged bangs.
Wow.
You know, the bowl cut, which is exactly what it sounds like. Mom would stick a bowl on top of your head, and then she would trim the edge going along the bowl.
That's different.
Even girls experience this, at least on their bangs. It was the official haircut of the 70s.
Wow.
Heck, even Pete Rose and Dorothy Hamill sported it.
Times have changed, man. That would not, you don't see that anymore, man. You don't see that anymore. It's rare.
Mechanical pencils are all the rage today, but in the 70s, wooden pencils ruled the world. But another essential school supply was the pencil cases with sharpeners or slide rulers. Even though you couldn't use them on test days, it still looked as though you were serious about learning. Everyone either had one or wanted one, just like how kids are now with iPhones.
Really?
Silly Putty was huge and tons of fun.
Silly Putty.
Back then, it was how 70s kids shared memes.
Play-Doh.
You could copy your favorite comic strip from the newspaper and then distort it different ways by stretching it.
That's sick.
Today, most newspapers use non-transferable ink, so kids will never experience the fun of copying their favorite comic strip.
Okay, that's sick. I like that. But yeah, it's not newspapers don't be having ink that you can transfer like that. Yeah, that's okay. Man, that's cool.
So kids will never experience the fun of copying their
so
favorite comic strip.
New to me, man.
Worksheets or homework assignments passed out to the students in the 1970s classrooms were created using ditto or mimeograph machines. They had an unmistakable odor and the ink would come off onto your fingers.
Really?
Saturday mornings were supposed to be about eating sugary cereals and sitting in front of the television watching your favorite cartoons. But somehow the Schoolhouse Rock started tricking us into learning math, history, and English without giving it a second thought.
That's it.
Their catchy songs taught us various things we couldn't have learned otherwise. Who remembers learning the branches of government from them? In 1975, Steven Spielberg released Jaws, and it had people everywhere scared to death of the water. Not just in the ocean, but even lakes and ponds could have this man-eating creature lurking below. But if you did go in the water with your friends, it was hard not to pretend you were a shark attacking them for a little scare fun. Thanks to the Metric Conversion Act of 1975, kids were all prepared to start measuring things in meters, liters, and grams rather than feet, pounds, and quarts. It's hard to believe it now, but this really was a serious thing in the late 1970s, especially if you were a kid. Schools showed kids films that...
I mean, obviously in the UK, we already do stuff in like meters and liters and grams and stuff like that, but okay. I mean, I guess that was cool back then. So much is different, man, from back then. I mean, like 90% of these things is the first time I'm ever hearing of this. So
1970s, especially if you were a kid. Schools showed kids films that tried to win them over with the adventures of metric marvels.
Really?
Kids today have no idea about the stress or fear about having to change to the metric system.
Yeah,
Playgrounds in the 70s were built to last as well as build character. The equipment was unforgiving and brutal. Monkey bars and merry-go-rounds were made of cold steel that could break bones without mercy. And who didn't love trying to see if you could go all the way around on the swing or come off flying on hard ground?
We still have this today.
It was also fun to spin the merry-go-round so fast that kids started flying and tumbling off onto the ground like rag dolls. Today,
we still have playgrounds today, but I can imagine, give it another 10 years, like, you're not gonna, Gen Alpha, that's after Gen Z, they're not gonna be going to the playground. Like, they're just gonna be doing everything digitally. Like, that's my prediction.
Flying and tumbling off onto the ground like rag dolls.
Playgrounds are becoming extinct, man.
Today, most people wear sunscreen when they're going to be outside for extended periods of time. Not only that, they wear high SPF versions of sunscreen.
Okay.
But in the 70s, it was all about trying to get that golden tan or sunburns in some cases.
Wow.
Back then, you could be outside all day showing lots of skin, and no one ever asked you, have you applied sunscreen?
Really?
There were even some people who lathered on suntan lotion or suntan oil so they could get even darker quicker.
What? Wow.
The 1970s brought us the best crime-fighting trio of all time, the Charlie's Angels.
Oh.
Girls wanted to be like them, and boys had crushes on them.
Wow.
Some were taken by Jacqueline Smith, while others only had eyes for Kate Jackson. But the vast majority of boys loved Farrah Fawcett. Did you have a favorite angel?
Yeah, I can definitely see the Charlie's Angels being a thing that a lot of boys would be crushing on. I've never seen the Charlie's Angels. I've heard of them, but I don't think I've ever seen anything from them. So I personally can't relate to this, but they look like pretty women, so I can imagine it. And yeah, sign of the times, man. It'll be interesting to see some Charlie's Angel stuff.
Majority of boys loved Farrah Fawcett. Did you have a favorite angel? The 1970s was all about short shorts and tube socks.
Okay.
Not only that, but it wasn't limited to just girls or boys. Everyone wore them. Styles for both sexes rarely ever align, and it may not have been the most flattering, but they sure were cool.
Really?
Hitchhiking today is sort of frowned upon, but in the 1970s, it wasn't. If you didn't have a car or no money, no problem. Just stick up your thumb and eventually a kind stranger would pull over and offer you a ride. It was also more common to see people pulling over to help others change a tire or anything else that you might need.
That's nice to know.
Nowadays, people seem to keep on going unless you're in a small town.
Yeah, hitchhiking in this modern day era, you're asking to get put in the back of a van with a guy that's trying to do an S trafficking ring. Respectfully, don't do that. That's crazy. But yeah, back in the day, that's more of a thing. Fair enough.
Nowadays, people seem to keep on going unless you're in a small town. Television in the 1970s was not the same as it is today. There wasn't an endless amount of channels or anything that could play on demand. So when something came on television that resonated with kids, it burned a permanent memory into their subconscious.
Wow.
How many of you can still sing the Sesame Street song or Rubber Ducky or maybe even the Oscar Mayer commercial song?
Wow, yeah, I don't know about
In the
that,
1970s, we became familiar with a galaxy far, far away. In 1977, we were introduced to lightsabers, the dark side, and of course, Darth Vader. Generations before had no idea of any of that, but nothing would be the same in the future as everyone is now familiar with Star Wars. The 1970s was just as dangerous then as it is today, yet none of the parents were freaked out over it. Kids played outside until the front porch lights came on, and they rode their bikes all over the town.
Wow.
Stranger danger wasn't even really a thing, and many kids were never even warned about it.
Really?
Usually they were just out making new friends and acquaintances with people they didn't even recognize or know.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
That's going to do it for today's video on the 1970s. I hope you enjoyed it, and it brought back some fond memories of the 1970s, whether you were a kid or not. If you enjoy these types of videos, make sure you check out the 1970s toy video that I
look, you guys gotta let me know what some of these things that resonated with you a lot, whether it was most of it, whether it was some of it, whether it was something more specifically. But yeah, a lot of this stuff very interesting to see for the first time. Like being a Gen Zer, like a lot of these things, like flew over my head. It's interesting to see it, like how things used to be, because obviously for the majority of those things that he said, like it's probably non-existent right now, which is kind of quite sad. I empathize with you guys watching, because a lot of the things you grew up on are now becoming things that are slowly fading into your memory. Because I feel like the same thing's gonna happen to me when I get old, of course, and the cycle continues, right? There's nothing new under the sun. These new kids that are growing up now are gonna start looking at me as if I'm some sort of, ancient species, and the stuff that I used to find fun is just no longer a thing anymore. But yeah, man, damn, like this whole video was cool to watch. It's cool to see the things you guys loved back in the day, or the things that might resonate with you. I don't know how true some of these things are, so let me know in the comments below. If you made this point, comment down a blue heart or #flexer so I know who my real ones are. But yeah, guys, look, with that being said, I've been your boy JayFlex. This has been Remembering the 1970s, and for those of you guys who made this point, you guys have been absolutely wonderful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.